DFS is getting harder. It's gotten harder every year since it started, and it will continue to get harder. Tools and data improve every year, and if you're not using the best available, there's a good chance you're getting left behind. Yet, understandably, there are still new players all the time trying to figure out how to make money in this realm, some of whom are starting with a very limited bankroll. Several have asked me over the years what I would recommend to somebody trying to build up from a limited bankroll today. It is harder than it was when I started over a decade ago, but it is still absolutely possible to build a DFS bankroll today. You just have to be smarter about where you're spending your money. I've got some ideas. I'll give you 5, starting with where I would start if I had less than $20 per day to enter in DFS. If you're new to DFS, and even if you're a DFS veteran, one of the most sustainable ways to build a bankroll is to chase overlay. If you don't know what that means, I'll give you a quick and simple example. Generally, prize pools are guaranteed for DFS tournaments. That's why we call them GPPs. It stands for guaranteed prize pool. So as an example, a tournament on DraftKings might be sized to have 10,000 entrants with a $10 buy-in. That's $100,000 in entry fees, but DraftKings will take a cut, which is called the rake. If the rake is 10%, there will be a $90,000 in guaranteed prizes. Overlay happens when the contest is sized for 10,000 entries, but fewer than 9,000 entries are filled. If the contest only fills 80%, DraftKings is only taking in $80,000, but they have to pay out $90,000. That's called overlay, and every DFS player in the contest gains some EV by the contest not filling. If the contest fills 95%, DraftKings will still get a cut. It'll just be smaller than they had planned. We call that reduced rake, which is still great. Where do you find overlay? If you're playing on DraftKings and FanDuel, typically you just have to wait until close to lock and scour the lobbies. Sometimes they'll put out secondary contests after the original contests fill, and the secondary contest won't fill. Alternatively, you can often find overlay on new DFS sites. As they are trying to gain customers, new DFS sites will often create contests that are a bit too large for their market share, with the expectation that they probably won't fill because they're trying to draw in new customers. Currently, you can find this on Owner's Box. It's week 13 as I'm making this video. The large tournaments on Owner's Box haven't filled all year, yet they continue to put out contests with large prize pools that consistently have overlay or reduced rate. Check it out if you haven't already done so. A lot of people know Underdog for their best ball and pick'em contests, but the daily contests go overlooked as a great place to get your money down. If you're not familiar, they're basically DFS contests, but rather than having a salary cap and giving each player a salary, you draft your team against other entrants. Depending on the slate size, you're usually drafting with 3 to 5 other people, but after the draft, you're competing with a much larger pool in a GPP style contest. There are a few things that I love about Underdog dailies. Number 1, lower rake than is typical on other sites. Currently, the Battle Royale contest for Week 14 NFL, for example, has 11.1% rake. Most of the flagship contests on other sites are around 15%, so a little bit lower rake on Underdog dailies. Number 2, flatter payout structures. The Week 14 NFL Battle Royale, just as an example, had a $300,000 prize pool. It's $30,000 a first, $20,000 a second, $15,000 a third, etc. Much easier to sustain a bankroll relative to standard DFS contests, where 20 to 25% of the prize pool goes to first place. Number 3 is just like regular DFS, except much softer than the more popular sites. The same considerations apply, like factoring in ownership, correlation, leverage, etc., but it's a lot softer. DFS pros don't want to take the time to draft 150 entries, so they just don't bother playing on Underdog. If you just look at average draft position relative to premium player projections, you can sometimes find players with great projections going well later than players who project worse. Many drafters are more casual on Underdog, and a lot more lineups won't be correlated at all. And drafters are funneled to all the same players since they're ranked by ADP. If you just don't draft by ADP, you can get players that aren't drafted as much and also get some rare player combos. They are great contests in a vacuum, and even better because it's more casual players and fewer pros. If you haven't checked out the dailies on Underdog, I highly recommend giving them a shot. This third suggestion is fairly niche. If you don't love NFL, fast forward. But if you are an NFL enthusiast like I am, there is a lot of edge in flash drafts on DraftKings during primetime games specifically. You can also play flash drafts during regular NFL slates, but typically there are a lot fewer entrants. If you're not familiar with flash drafts, here's an overview. Contests are for single quarters of game action, and there are typically several different drafts for each quarter of the game, each being unique. Each draft typically has several different buy-in levels from $1 to hundreds. You can enter at just one buy-in level or several, but they run concurrently, so your choices will be the same for all. Prize pools for each contest are scaled based on the number of entrants events, and generally they have nice flat payout structures. The draft itself is a set of 5 multiple choice questions with 3 possible answers each, asking who will score the most fantasy points in the quarter. Most answers are a single player, but some questions will have choices with multiple players or give a multiplier to a player or two. Often, certain players will show up in multiple questions in the same draft. Drafters are given 15 seconds to make each selection. I've written an article on Flash Draft Strategy, and I'll make sure to link that in the comments, but the Cliff Notes are just correlate like crazy. Choose the same player multiple times if possible. If you don't choose a player for one question, try to skip that player again if they come up again. It is astounding how few drafters factor in their past picks with each new multiple choice set. You can benefit from that. Check it out if you haven't already. First 3 suggestions have all been about contest selection. These last 2 are about tools that might not make sense right away if you're starting with a limited bankroll, but can help you to really elevate your game once you've built up your bankroll a bit. My 4th suggestion is one that, if you followed me for long, you probably heard me talk about it. I think it is the best value tool in the industry by far. I am, of course, talking about Stochastic's lineup generator, which you can get for NFL, NBA, MLB. The list is expanding. The beauty of the lineup generator is you get the power of Stochastic Sims product for a fraction of the price. Every single lineup the lineup generator spits out is one that has been run through tens of thousands of sims and shows up as profitable in those sims. I'll give 3 pieces of advice that I think are extremely important when it comes to the lineup generator. First, try to wait until close to lock. For NFL, inactives come out 90 minutes before games lock. Typically, I recommend running the lineup generator within 60 minutes of lock so you can be confident all the data is updated. For NBA, with so much late breaking news, the closer you can get to lock, the better. Second, the lineup generator gives you 20 lineups at a time, but there is no reason you need to just take the first 20 lineups it gives you. The lineup generator has thousands of lineups that look good in the sims, so you can be picky when it comes to choosing lineups you like, finding the right balance with your player exposures, etc. Third, if you really want to create your own lineups, the lineup generator is still a great tool for studying both which players look good on a given slate and also what good lineups look like. If you haven't already checked it out, I can't recommend it highly enough. Finally, once you've really built up a bankroll and you're either playing high volume or high stakes, I believe the Stochastic Sims are the most powerful tool on the market. You can start with the first stage of the Sims, which is the contest generator, and if you go with the highest level package, you can generate a field of up to 10,000 lineups. If you'd rather, you can also create your own set of lineups and upload them from an outside source. Either way, once you've got your lineups, you can put them through the pre-contest simulator. At a contest level, it will simulate the lineups you've put into it tens of thousands of times and tell you exactly how each lineup did over those many thousand sims. It'll tell you which had the highest ROI in the sims, which lineups cashed the most frequently, and much more. And in case you're wondering, yes, it has functions for every lever you want to consider for DFS. Projections, ownership, correlation, all of this is factored into the sims. As an added bonus, you also get access to post-contest sims, which will tell you which lineups had the best expected ROI once we know all the actual lineups that were entered into a contest. This is an extremely powerful tool with a ton of customizability and flexibility. If you have questions about the Sims or any other products, go find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I'm at PlayerQDFS and my DMs are open. Thanks for watching this video and good luck building your bankroll.